and it's day 5 and you have been getting ready for painting, because day 1 you were there doing your bullet journal, so you had an idea of what we were planning and how we were going to go about it, and creating a place to catch your ideas as they flow, and that'll be different for everybody. We then went on to talk about developing your artistic style on day 2, and we learned all about the style bricks. So all of that good stuff was thinking work, and then you looked at making sure you had a space to create. So now we're ready to actually get painting. Today we're going to paint figures, and we're going to do so in a beautiful, fluid, illustrative style. We've got 3 figures here, and it all starts off with a colour background as our base, and I've used 3 colours here. Then we have 3 lots of hearts, 2 that are the same size and 1 smaller one. So the 2 that are the same size are for the shoulders and for the bottom, and then the smaller one is for the head. Then I block this in black, and while I'm doing that I can then start to drag the black out for the arms and start to take the dip of the heart off to round off the head. Start to introduce the hair and the legs, and then add the skirt shape. And I repeat this process with each of these 3 doodles. And what I'm trying to do with the 3 doodles is that I'm making a different decision each time for each different one. So get the basics in first of all. I block in their skin colour, I block in some basic hair colour. Don't worry about shading at this stage. I then go in with a little bit of detail with a thinner brush, and then start to add some shading in on the neck, just sketching some eyes and mouth, and start to sharpen up my lines because I've been a bit rough and ready on the first pass. I then add colour on top of the black and start to think about how I can make it interesting, visually interesting with pattern. So I continue to colour in, add the pattern, try and mix it up, but do so with similar colours so you can see the reverse dots going on there. I then tidy up a few more edges, add a little bit of sharpness to the second figure, and add a bit of a frill to the bottom of her skirt. So you can see I'm trying to make different decisions for each figure, and when you're doing sketches, it's really good if you can just make one little decision that's different and then keep repeating the process. So it'd be brilliant if you could do 20 figures in your bullet journal, because the more you do, the easier this will become for you. Of course, playing around with colour on the bullet journal versus playing around with colour on a canvas with paint is very different, and that's what I'll take you through next. But for sketching ideas, this is a good first start, and this is your first part of your challenge. I'm going to be working in acrylic today, so I'm going to have a pot of water, 3 brushes, big brush, medium brush, little brush, and a canvas which is up on the easel behind me. For some bits I will slow down and talk to camera and describe what I'm up to, and then other bits I'll time lapse through so you can see things at hyper speed. This way of working, as I said, is illustrative, and it's pretty typical of fashion illustration. I'm painting in acrylic, but you might be painting in watercolour. It might be that you're there with your colour pencils and felt tip pens. Totally doesn't matter what materials you're working with. You could even be collaging this up, which actually would work really well. We might actually do a bit of collaging on that a bit later. So scissors, paper, paint, all the bits and pieces like paintbrushes, kitchen roll if you've got any, or a rag, and your brushes, and that's you good to go. What I want you to do today is to use your favourite colours to try and get more movement into a figure than you ever have done before. And I want to see not only your finished painting, but I want to see lots of little doodles of practice. So a photograph from your ideas pages in your bullet journal of lots of little doodles would be absolutely brilliant. And then take your time to work on a bigger piece of your favourite doodle, bringing it to life in a bit more of an expressive way, either on canvas or on board, on paper, whatever you're using. Pick one and go larger. So I'm at the easel, I've got my palettes, I've got my brushes, pots of water, I've eyed up the paint colours that I quite fancy using today, and I'm good to go. I'm going to start on the background first of all, and I would recommend that you keep the background really loose. Just pick your favourite colour and get some nice flow and some lovely transitions where one colour mixes into another colour. See, I've got a mix of blues and purples, bluey greens. Do you remember that colour palette that was on my inspiration board? I'm pulling out some of that because I know through doing that inspiration board work, those are the colours that are attracting me, inspiring me at the moment. So it was important to get those colours down, and I wanted it quite loose, so there's lots of paint running down, there's a bit of water diluting the paint, and I've also tonked back a bit of the thick paint with some of the kitchen roll. And I actually quite like how the kitchen roll has given like a little imprint, a little texture on there as well. So that's now nice and dry. I want you to go and grab some paper and some scissors. I'm going to cut out some hearts. So I'm going to use the templates now to figure out what size figure I want to work with. So the two larger hearts, I'm going to stick on here like that. One upside down, one the right way up. And the point of this exercise of cutting the hearts is so you can pivot the body, so you get a nice dynamic movement of the figure. So it might be that your figure's straight, it might be that there's a bit of an arc going on. And actually I think those two hearts for my painting are a bit too large, so I'm going to use my smaller ones and play around with that. Now on this portrait size canvas, I'm actually lifting the body up quite high. I want a long space left for the legs and the shoes. So I think it's about there. So with some chalk, I'm just gonna plot in the shape of the hearts by using the templates. I can get rid of the templates now. And actually I think I want them smaller still, but because I've got the position, I can make them smaller. So I'm going to come on the inside of that original shape. Like that. Now if you just want to freestyle it with your hearts on your canvas, on your piece of paper, that's fine, but using the templates you can really play around with that dynamic form. So once you've decided how big or how small, get a wet wipe and just tonk away any lines that you don't need. And then I want you to block those in black. And I'm just going to shave a little bit off the top of that heart with the wet wipe. Wet wipe's brilliant for doing this sort of stuff. Otherwise your shoulders can end up looking a wee bit too broad. So I can take off the dip of the heart here. And just curving her bottom up a little bit more. I'm going to draw another smaller heart for the head, and then from that I will draw the neck. You can have a long neck, a short neck, totally up to you. And there I can see that's a bit wide, so I'm carving that in all the while. Just going to get rid of the dip on the heart there to bring the head in. And then I'm going to bring some legs in, some really long, bendy, at a funny angle legs. And take that dip of the upside down heart off now. It's almost like you're carving the shape out of the paint with the wet wipe. So, you know, the style bricks we were talking about, one of your tools is definitely a wet wipe today. And that's what I'll do for the next 15 minutes, work around making sure that I'm happy with the position, adding bits, taking bits away, and basically sculpting the figure. So once you're happy with your silhouette, then you can start blocking in on top of there. And it's just like the example that I showed you digitally. First of all, we're blocking in very simply. So it's a case of, I've got a flesh tone on here. I'm not worried about detail or anything at this stage. I'm just getting the colour shape down. So we've got a few block colours down, very, very simply. What I want to do for the dress is have a bit of a scurry around, see if I can find like a bit of pattern paper or even magazine, newspaper, because I'm looking for pattern, and it could even be just like text pattern. But that is going to make up the pattern of my dress, which I'll then paint on top of. So I've worked the blocks of paint on top of there. I've looked at patterns and repeating patterns, like the hem of her skirt repeats again in the Eiffel Tower, and I've played around with colour. I've also added some collage from some bits of paper I found around the studio, and there is this everything has a story in a magazine, which I carefully snipped out and fitted into the painting as well. So it's missing a wee bit of detail at this stage. And on this particular one, I wouldn't normally do this, but playing around with this style, I'm going to actually go in with a gel pen and get some detail in and work a bit closer, just because it's an illustrative style, so it can bear that mixed media in terms of expression. Tips for you today are to practice your heart shapes in your bullet journal, and then when you're ready, have a go at a bigger painting based on the heart shape position that you really like. Build up your black silhouette shape first of all. Make sure you're happy with that. Shape into it with a wet wipe if ever you need to correct it, or you kind of think that you haven't quite got the position right. Then build your colour blocks on top. Scurry around for a bit of interesting newspaper, magazine, wrapping paper, cards, and see if you can get a bit of collage going in there, and then start to add your detail after that. Now, I'm not expecting you to do the same painting as me. I'm expecting you to do a painting of a figure that you really like from the ones that you've been practicing in your bullet journal. It might be that when you go for your bigger painting, that a scene inspires you in a wholly different way, and it'd be really interesting to see how different all of ours are. Anyway, Have fun with this. It's a bit of a longer one than normal, so take your time. We've got time at the moment to crack on and sort of stretch those creative muscles, so don't rush it. Practice your heart shapes first, then go for a bigger painting and build up those layers. So I'm gonna crack on and add a little bit of detail, and I'll show you the finished picture. Tomorrow we've got how to film your art, and then hopefully I might get to see a few little videos of you working on your art, which would be awesome. Anyway, I'll see you tomorrow.